Welcome to the first ever Songs of Glimmerwick devlog. I'm Danny Weinbaum, founder of eShade Studios. We're a small team making games with a focus on setting, exploring the oceans of non-combat game design. In this series, we're going to show off stuff about the game, cover what we've been working on, talk about our production challenges, and occasionally talk a bit of design philosophy. Songs of Glimmerwick is an open-world woodland fantasy adventure game where the magic of the world is music. So you'll gather spells that you cast by playing short songs. And you can improve your mastery of spells by improving your score in a Guitar Hero-esque rhythm game. There's a farming sim component where you can build out a garden in a non-tedious way using your music magic. The farming isn't just a Skinner box though, it's definitely a hefty auxiliary loop that serves the real meat and potatoes of the game, which is this absolutely sprawling adventure RPG. Seriously, this game is turning out to be epic. The world feels huge. There are so many characters, memorable quests, set-piece moments, and visually distinct areas. Honestly, I can't believe how big this is turning out to be. It is way, way bigger than our last title, eShade. Speaking of eShade, eShade is our studio's last title, which was a first-person open-world adventure where you play as a traveling artist. It came out in 2019 and was sort of a mid-tier indie hit, selling over 250,000 units and grossing over $3 million worldwide. So this game is being funded off of the revenue of that game, and while this new one looks quite different, we're keeping a lot of the same design philosophies with the non-violent game loops and a focus on setting, and also having a lively, fully voice-acted world filled with characters and small stories.
While that is beautiful and all, would you mind doing it elsewhere? Some of us are trying to sleep.
So the team building this game is myself, programmer, tech artist, bit of design, and a smattering of other stuff. My wife Jacqueline, who is the lead artist and lead designer, she drew just about everything you see, and the whole high-level design and world are hers. She actually came up with the initial pitch for the game back in 2016 when farming sims were basically still uncharted territory. Very different landscape now, obviously. Then we have another full-time programmer, Jenny, from England, who is doing most of the coding these days. We've got an animator, Misaki, from Japan, who is doing the lion's share of the animations. And finally we have our composer, Phoenix, who did the amazing eShade soundtrack. By the end of production, that list will probably be longer, especially once we get to voice acting, where the credits will absolutely explode. The game will be entirely voice acted. We think it adds so much life and variety to the world, and it's another thing I think we're good at. I think we're good at casting and organizing it, and we've got the budget to do it. And I think it helps set our games apart as well. If you happen to be a professional voice actor, feel free to give me a follow on Twitter @eShade or the game's Twitter @Glimmerwick. And toward the end of production, we will do an open audition, just like we did for eShade. Probably not super useful to hit me up right now, because we tend to get so many auditions that I don't really keep a running list during development. Because voice acting locks in the script, we wait till the very, very end of production. I want to talk about the questing for a minute, because I really feel like it's the strong suit of our studio, or at least one of the strong suits, and kind of the backbone of this game. Whereas in a lot of simulation style games, where the quests feel strapped on to give goals to the simulation loops, in our game it's the other way around. The stories and characters are the stars, and a lot of the game's auxiliary loops like farming, potion brewing, moth racing, yes that's right, I said moth racing, are things you do to progress the quest lines. It's much more like a traditional RPG in that sense. We try to make all the quests memorable, whether that's through character development, novel narrative predicaments, set-piece moments, or novel things we ask the player to do. We put a lot of our production muscle into the quests, and I think if you like adventure games in general, this game is totally going to be your jam. If you happen to have played eShade and like the questing in that, I think this game's quests are even stronger. I mentioned the gardening / farming in Glimmerwick is non-tedious. So here's what I feel like is the gameplay balance in most farming sims. You're doing a lot of daily tasks like watering crops one at a time, chopping trees one at a time, laying plots, harvesting and reseeding. It's sort of a mindless, maybe therapeutic ritual that you continue to do every day. And it commands a lot of your game time every day. Eventually, after putting tons and tons of hours, maybe you get into some automation that frees up some time. And that's cool and all, but we're using our farming game loop in a different way. Like I said in the intro, our games are focused on setting above all. So we've changed that balance significantly, where the vast majority of your time is spent exploring and questing. Right from the start of the game, you can use your music spells to enchant your tools, and they do a lot of this work for you. As long as you have enough mana, you can queue them all up and watch them go, or you can just run off and leave your little buddies to do their work. And speaking of exploring, did I mention this world is freaking sprawling? So given so much less time is devoted to farming, it frees the player's focus for the adventure aspects of the world. Now, freeing the player to adventure doesn't just magically mean they'll have more grand adventuring. We've got to do the work, work that much harder to make sure the world is actually filled with grand adventures. Fortunately, I feel like that's just our forte as a studio. For instance, here's a derelict gondola I fixed, and it's taking me up into the mountains to search for a fabled place called the Temple of Silence. Okay, that is all for this devlog, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, if anyone has any questions for me about our game, about game development, about starting an indie studio or anything like that, feel free to ask in the comments. And next video, I'd like to have a community questions section at the end. And of course, if you dig this kind of video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we drop a new one. And hey, if you are digging the game you're seeing here, you're thinking, hey, this game looks pretty cool, I think I'd like to play it. Oh boy, howdy, would I be excited if you headed over to Steam and gave us a wish list. I'll leave a link to the game in the description. You can also just search Songs of Glimmerwick on Steam, and you should be able to find it that way pretty easily. Alright, we'll keep chugging on this game, and see you next video maybe.